Welcome back to the Contemporary Crusader. Today we're going to be talking about belts. All right, so if you're new to shooting, or even if you've been shooting for a while, but you want to start training more than just going to a static range and putting holes through paper and, indoor range, whatever, you want to start honing in your ability to be a combat shooter. I think one of the first steps is to get a belt. So shooting belt, battle belt. When I was in the Army, we called them our war belt. So there's different names, but effectively just a outside the waistband shooting belt. So today we're going to talk a little bit about my setup, what I've liked, what I've learned over years of running different types of belts, everything from in the military to law enforcement, SWAT capacity, undercover capacity, patrol, all that. So, and then now just as a armed citizen that still wants to train and be prepared for anything that could happen. So, to kind of give a little bit of a history, when I first got into the Army, when I first got to Ranger Battalion, we set up our war belts. At the time, most of the ones that you were seeing were the type that were the thicker padded ones that go over your existing belt. They're not Velcroed on, but it's the thicker padding goes over there. That's what that's what we were issued. I don't know what they're issued now. I'm sure it's different. I'm sure it's more of the stuff that I'm using here, or similar. So there's different types. That the good thing about those thick padded, and I think High Speed Gear HSGI, they make a pretty good one because it has a material on the inside that doesn't allow it to slip up your body. It kind of adheres to whatever it's wrapped around without Velcro. It's like that sticky material. The good thing about that is you can just grab and go. You don't need to put an inner belt on. You don't need to really do anything. It's just a grab and go, throw it on, you're ready to go. So I do like that aspect of it, but in my opinion, it's a little bulky. It never really bothered me to throw on an inner belt or keep an inner belt. If I thought that I was going to have to throw my shooting belt on or my war belt on, then I could just keep the inner belt on and go from there. So I think that's really the only advantage of it, is that it's a little bit quicker. You don't have to put on an inner belt, like I said. So there's that. For a while, I was running. I had a sidearm. I had an M9. I was a saw gunner, so it was our SOP to carry a secondary firearm, a sidearm. And so at the time, I just wore my regular rigger belt, Serpa holster. I know it's kind of, now everybody hates them, but it was to have it, but I wasn't using it that much. The chances of me having to use it were pretty slim. And then I had my med kit and stuff on my regular belt. I would leave that in my mission pants, and then so all I had to do was throw my mission pants on. It had everything that I needed. So looking back, I would do it differently. You're kind of limited to what's being issued. You can buy outside stuff, but at the time I was kind of cheap and I didn't really care to spend money when I didn't have to. So then going into law enforcement, I had the issued leather patrol belt. As soon as I was done with training and I could kind of get away with running my own belt, I started looking into what kind of belt that I'd want to set up. So what I ended up going to at the time, and this isn't totally set up because it's been a while since I've used it. It's missing a couple of the pouches. I've moved on to other stuff. But I got the Ronin belt, and this is pretty standard as far as what you're going to see with these types of belts. You're going to have some kind of MOLLE, typically a Cobra buckle. It could be a different buckle, but typically it's a Cobra buckle. And you can either MOLLE onto the belt, or in the case of the Safariland paddle, it just feeds right through like a regular belt. And you just add this stuff. So this is the QLS attachment from Safariland for our taser, which I don't have the taser anymore, obviously, but this was my own attachment. So I have that on there. Some Kydex handcuff pouches, which are I don't even know who makes them. CompTech. No, it's called the CompTech by HSGI. So these are HSGI, and then tourniquet holder, and I had some other stuff on there as well. So I got this, started figuring out different ways to set up, and I really liked it. So it's held up real well. I used it quite a bit. No real complaints with it. I've kind of moved on. I have a couple Ronin belts. I've tried a couple, and I've never had any issues with them. So they're pretty rigid. But like I said, this is pretty standard. You're going to have, every company is going to have their own way of, or their own type of MOLLE attachment. And we'll talk about what I use now and how it differs. But pretty standard belt, Cobra buckle. You want it fairly rigid, and then you can attach either over the belt. And if I'm doing attachments that are over the belt, you can see on there. So I don't want this sliding around when I'm wearing it. So I would just put sticky Velcro right there, and then when I put it on the inner belt, it holds it in place. So you'll see that on some of these, like the tourniquet, you see that it's on there. So that's just something that I did with my belts, and it worked well. So this was my patrol belt from Ronin. This is another Ronin belt that I had. I was running this on SWAT for a little bit, liked it, no issues. These are Wilder Tactical. And you can see they haven't been used much, and that's just because they were actually given to me, and I ended up using the ones that I'll show you here in a little bit. But they are really well made. They're nice. The only complaint is with this soft kind of fabric material. It's just a little bit when you're putting mags into it. It's just it kind of collapses on itself sometimes, and I don't love that. But it holds them in there pretty well. You can adjust the tension, and it works just fine. So that's Wilder Tactical. That's their med pouch, which also was given to me, so it's not used much. And then my QLS panel here from Safariland. This is just a standard. This is just a standard thigh strap, and I'll talk to you what I'm using now, which I like a lot more. So I used this Ronin belt, not much the attachments, but the belt itself, for quite a while. And I liked it a lot, and really there was no reason to stop using it besides the fact that I wanted to try out the Wilder Tactical system because I really liked how their attachments work, and I think this is what makes them special. So this is my shooting belt now. I ran this on SWAT for several years. I ran it for any kind of buy bus operation. Anytime that I needed a shooting belt, this is what I ran for several years, and it's kind of the full evolution of what I want in a belt. So it has everything that I like, and we'll go through it in detail and talk about why I like it. So the first thing about the Wilder Tactical that I really like, now they're not as rigid as the Ronin. I don't know if that's really a pro or a con. It doesn't really seem to affect anything as long as your inner belt is fairly rigid. So this one's a little bit softer, and I haven't noticed that I like it or dislike it more or less than the other belts of the Ronin that I ran. I will say that it is a little bit more comfortable. With the rigid belts, they kind of dig into your hips a little bit more, but beyond that, they both work well. So anyway, let's just start kind of how this is set up. So I got my QLS panel here, and this is the first thing about the Wilder Tactical that you're seeing some other people do it, but I think that they were the first, and it's kind of I hate to use the term game changer because it's overused, but in my opinion, as far as belt setups, it really is a game changer. Two aspects of the Wilder. One is the swiveling leg strap. So especially if you're getting in and out of a vehicle a lot, what happens is when it's rigid, it pulls that holster and it makes it uncomfortable on your leg. So this allows your leg to move freely of the holster, and it's a lot more comfortable when you're walking. It's a lot more comfortable. So this is a huge improvement in my opinion, this swivel here. Then they have their strap, which I also like. It has a small Cobra buckle. It looks cool, but it's also nice and thinner. It's not as bulky, the buckle or the strap, and it's not elastic. So the other ones, because your leg, or because it doesn't swivel, you know, typically you have to have an elastic, so your strap has some play in it to where when you're sitting down and it's rigid, whereas this can be a non-elastic strap which lasts longer and it doesn't get stretched out and go bad over time. This can be rigid, and then your leg is moving, like I said, the swivel is moving with your leg and the holster is staying fixed. So that's a huge pro for me. This is probably one of my favorite aspects of their belt systems, and like I said, you're seeing that more often. Now the other thing is how their accessories attach onto the belt. So instead of being a conventional MOLLE where there's just straps here and you know put the MOLLE in there, there's openings, there's little slots in each one, and we'll get a close-up of that, but there's slots all the way through, and then they have their own plastic attachments that go onto whatever accessory or whatever pouch you're using, and that feeds in and screws down in that place. So it's not gonna slide on the belt. It's inside the Velcro, so it's not taking away from your Velcro surface, so your belt's not sliding around, and it's rigid. It's super easy to move pouches around, which anybody that's worked on MOLLE will know that it's just a complete pain in the butt. So this, in my opinion, is a game changer. This is the Wilder Tactical Med pouch that I have on the back here. This is the Blue Force Gear dump pouch, and it's just an elastic. There's some things I like and some things I don't like. What I like about it is that when it's folded, it takes up almost no space, and then you can just pull it there and you drop in there. Now the only issue that I'll say with it is a little floppy. It's not a very rigid pouch, so if you're putting anything in there, you're getting a lot of slaps on the leg, but it's not a big deal. I really don't use a dump pouch that much. I like having them just in case, especially if I'm on the range, and you can keep extra mags or some ammo in there if you're reloading your mags. So it's good to have, but I find myself not using a dump pouch that often, but I do like having one. So, and again, this has the attachments on it. So even though it's not a Wilder Tactical accessory or pouch, you can use their black, or their little clips. I don't know if they're always black, but they're little attachment clips there. And then it screws on, stays in place. And then going to the pouches, or the mag caddies, or whatever you want to call them. Again, the Wilder Tactical ones work really well. I just like a little bit more rigid for when you're putting the magazine in. Taking it out, it's also pretty stiff in there. I've been running, these are S-Tac, I don't know if I mentioned that, but I've been running the S-Tac pouches for several years on patrol, SWAT capacity, and I've never had a magazine pop out. I've never had any issues. So it you know, foot chases, whatever, the magazines always have stayed in the caddies, which I like. So they have different inserts. So it's fabric on the outside and then Kydex on the inside. And the Kydex is kind of bent in, so it puts pressure on the magazine. And they have different inserts for different magazines. The AR mags are pretty standard. When you get to the pistol mags, so I have two inserts. I have one for 2011 mags and one for Glock mags. What I have found that the 2011 inserts work well with both. So the Glock inserts do not work well with the 2011 mags. They tend to pop out just because where the tension point is in a different spot. So since a 2011 mag narrows out in a different spot than a Glock mag, I found that the 2011 mags in the Glock inserts tends to not work well, but the 2011 inserts works well with the Glock as well. So I just keep the 2011 inserts in there and it works well with both, so I switch back and forth. There are inserts, I believe, for single stack or other type, pretty much every type of magazine. If it doesn't work with the 2011 or the Glock, it will work. They have the attachments. On the back here, I just have an extra mag pouch. I can put an extra mag in there if I need it, but typically I like having a multi-tool on me. I use that quite a bit. And that's a double there. So double mag, or in this case multi-tool mag, and then I have my canted mag pouch in the front. So this is the one that I'm working out of most of the time. I just like that, you know, there's some science to straight lines. Instead of having to rotate or bend your wrist down, it's a straight line through to the mag, or to the mag well, and I like that a lot. One thing I'll say about S-Tac, and they've been super, their customer service is great. I've had to send it back a couple times, but now I kind of got it solved. But they had, because now I use the Wilder Tactical attachments that screw in. But their attachments, the plastic ones they had, I found that they broke quite a bit. Had to send them back. Customer service is great. I think they've changed, or they use a different material now. But every time that it broke, they were like super apologetic. They're like, hey, we'll send you, you know, free of charge, just, you know, whatever. So they made it right, but I did have it break a couple times. So I think that they've changed it since then, the material they use. But I don't really even, like I said, I use the Wilder Tactical attachment, so I don't use it anymore. Except for the canted one, which is just a Velcro. It just wraps around on Velcro, and I haven't had any issues with that. It's very rigid, it stays on there. Going to the front, Cobra buckle just like that. And then Wilder Tactical, usually I think all their belts come with the little carabiner here. I got my gloves on there, and I got this is just like came with a Night Force scope, but it's just a lens cleaner, which is nice to have for glasses if they fog up, or your optics or anything like that. You can just pull that out, and when you're done with it, stuff it back into that pouch. So I always keep one of those on me, just in case I have to clean glasses or clean optics or anything like that. Going back to the holster setup, you'll see that it has this, it doesn't have the holster on now. It has what's called the QLS, the quick something, I don't know. It's the QLS, and it's made by Safariland. So it's basically just a fork and this part, and it just, you can pop it in there, and now I can have multiple holsters with that QLS attachment, and I can swap it out whenever I'm using a different gun. So to me, that's a must, especially when I was working at the PD. I had my issued duty sidearm, and then when I'd go to the range, I'd have my own stuff, or if I wanted to shoot something different, and that way I could just pop it on and off, and it was real quick. So I think the QLS is a must. There's other options, non-Safariland options, I believe. I think G-Code makes one, and there's some other good ones out there. I have no experience with those ones. I've only used the Safariland QLS, and I've been very happy with it. So that's pretty much the belt. We'll talk a little bit about the holsters. So I have, like I said, the different holsters. This is for a 2011 or a Staccato specifically. And you can see that there's a tourniquet attached to the front. And what you can, if you look at this, you can kind of tell this one has a rear cant to it. So this is made by, I believe, Black Box Customs, or produced by them. Antimatter maybe is who came up with this, but it's called the negative cant something NCP, or and then you can get it with or without the tourniquet attachment on the front. It's just a plate that goes to the front where you can screw your tourniquet holder on there. So I really like this. I was kind of skeptical. I thought it was, you know, somewhat of a trendy deal until I started using. I, you know, went ahead and got one and used it. And to me, it makes a draw so much smoother. It tilts, especially with the factory Safariland cant, where it's a forward cant, and it's very unnatural how you're trying to, you're actually like turning your wrist to get good purchase and release that. Whereas the negative cant, it comes like this, so it's a straight line to that, and it's I've found that it improved my draw considerably. Now, people have been using these for years. Guys that are a lot faster draws than me use this, and it works fine. So it's not one of those things where it's necessarily going to make you a better shooter or better drawer, but it just made it, for me, it made it more streamlined and more comfortable. So I put that, my only gripe, and it's probably a good business plan on their part, is that I would rather have seen this attachment be for the holster panel and not the holster itself, because now if I want one, I have to buy it for each holster that I have, and they're not cheap. They're I don't remember exactly, but they're not cheap. So you know, you have to end up buying them for each holster. I would have rather seen it be an attachment for the panel, and that way any holster with the standard Safariland forks goes on there. But like I said, it's a better business plan to make them buy it for each holster. Or maybe it was a design thing where they tried to do it with the panel. I don't know. There are other companies that make, like I think True North is one of them, where it replaces this panel and then it has the cant adjustment built in, so you can put it at what cant that you want. So that's kind of my setup. I think that if you're trying to get into combat shooting, or start training a little more beyond just the static indoor range stuff, I think a belt, having a good shooting belt and building it, is probably a good starting point. It's you can you might be able to argue that buying a chest rig or buying body armor is more important, but at the end of the day, you're going to use your belt more than anything else, and it's just nice to have it set up exactly how you like it and get used to it. So it's going to be the one piece of gear that you probably have to put the most thought into setting up. I know that with a plate carrier, you want everything that in a place that makes sense, but there's only so many things you can do. There's only you got your mags here, you might have some radio pouches or whatever you need, but ultimately you're limited on how what you can set up. It's pretty standard. Some people might disagree with that, but if you look at any plate carrier or chest rig, it's pretty much the same thing. You got the magazines here, you might have some extra pouches on the side, and that's it. With a belt, I think takes a little bit more thought. You got to try, it's a lot of trial and error and trying different things. But it's one of those things that once you have it and it's set up the way, like it took me years to figure out exactly where I want everything, and now I can't. Maybe over time I'll evolve to doing something else. But the way my belt's set up now is pretty much perfect for me and what I want to do. So I'm very happy with it. Now, there's dozens of companies out there that make belts and attachments. I have found that Wilder Tactical is one of the most innovative systems out there. There might be other guys with like, oh, well, I do a laser cut MOLLE or whatever. It's lighter, or it's thinner. I put Tigris in there, or whatever it's called, the carbon fiber looking stuff. But ultimately it works the same. It's still a MOLLE attachment. This is the first system that I found where it's truly innovative, where your the way it mounts in there is super easy. It's super rigid and solid. It's not going to slide around, and especially with a holster, as a left-handed guy, it's a little bit easier because I can just take this part off and slide the panels on and off the traditional way. But if you're right-handed and your holster is all the way over here, you have to take everything else off your holster or your belt to put that panel on if you wanted to change it out. So this is super easy. You don't have to move anything else to move the pouches around or take the pouches off, and it's just very streamlined and very solid. And then the other thing, like we talked about, is this swivel strap. I think that's, I just saw another company that made something similar. I don't remember. I think maybe Blue Force Gear. And I'm like, I looked at it, I'm like, well, yeah, Wilder's been doing that for years. So it's a really great system. The guys over at Wilder are great dudes. I've never talked to them personally, but I know people that have talked to them, and I've never had to use their customer service, but I've heard really good things about it. He's also a former Ranger, so maybe I'm a little biased, but they make a great product, and I've been very impressed with it overall. So that's the belt setup. If you guys have any questions, hit me up in the comments. Hope that helps someone that's in the field or looking for a new belt, or maybe they have a belt and they want to try something different. I've been very happy, whether it's the Ronin. I think there's nothing wrong with those belts. I've had I used them for a while and they work really well. But the Wilder attachments, how the accessories attach on there, the leg strap, to me that's like the biggest selling point, and I'll probably be sticking with Wilder for the foreseeable future. I don't see what else. And they're still innovating, they're still making cool stuff. So I don't see what else I could want out of a belt, but you never know. There's always things that change, or I might need, different, whatever's the new cool thing, I might need that and try it out. So anyway, hope you guys liked the video. Like I said, if you have any questions, hit me in the comments. If you are not subscribed, please subscribe. Share the channel if you're liking what you see. Send it to a buddy. And do all the notifications, whatever you're supposed to do on YouTube. Still haven't figured it all out, but until next time, God bless and be safe. They're really good. These are Wilder Tactical and Wilder. Anyway, so these are Wilder Tactical.